So let's start. It's 1 hour. So good afternoon, everybody. So this is the last session for our track AI training and education, future of work and skills. And today we have the pleasure to have a keynote from Yanaël Leborgne from La Scientothèque. And then we will have a great discussion panel moderated by Caroline with different people. So they will present just after the keynote. And so Yanaël, I'll let you the floor. Great, we see your screen, perfect. But we don't hear you, huh? You are mute.
Thank you, Valerie, for the introduction, and thanks everybody for joining. So I'll start this session with a short introduction to this topic of teaching AI to kids. It's going to be 20 minutes, and then we'll follow with the discussion panel. And for this introduction, I wanted to start by telling a bit about our experience at La Scientothèque in, giving activities on the topic of AI to kids. Last year, so we've been working on designing AI activities for kids for about 2 years now. And last year, we gave a summer school on that topic. So there were a group of about 10 kids from age 10 to 14 that joined. And I start by giving some of the examples of activities that we did with them. So just before that, tell you a bit about La Scientothèque, so for which I work, which is a non-profit organization based in Brussels. And it's located on the La Plaine campus. So it's the campus of the University of Brussels in Ixelles. And the organization was created about 20 years ago. And its mission is to give equal opportunities through sciences. So we target mostly kids and young people from age 4 to age 20, and mostly kids from disadvantaged backgrounds. So we support them with school support, tutoring, and also with activities related to science, technology, engineering, art, and mathematics. So these activities known as STEAMs. And we either welcome the kids in our offices where we have materials like electronics, computers, machines, like 3D printers, laser cutting machines, which allow to hack all kind of stuff. And we also go to schools to provide these activities. And we also support teachers in using tools, digital tools, and in doing themselves these activities around STEAMs to their classes. We are also part of different networks. So at the European level, we're part of the EZERO program, which is the educational program from the European Spatial Agency. And we are the contact point for the EZERO program in the French-speaking part of Belgium. We're also part of different Erasmus Plus projects, like the CAI project, which is a network of teachers that work on designing resources for teaching kids about computer science. And we're also supported in Brussels by Inviris, and at the federal level by the Digital Belgium Skills Fund. So going back to activities related to AI, the first thing that we did during that summer school that we organized last year was to, define AI, which is not so simple because actually there is no real definition for AI. So instead of like telling the kids, okay, that is the definition of AI, and that is something that you should remember, we ask them to, well, tell us what they think AI is. And that's much more interesting to know what they think, what it is. And also because if you ask two different persons, even two different AI experts, you wouldn't have the same answer about the definition of AI. So the way we can do this is simply by asking kids to give a few words that relate to AI for them, and then to either write them on a board or using a word cloud, which is a bit more simple. And this is the result that we obtained. And the word that was cited the most was intelligence, which makes sense. The second one was robot. And so this is interesting because it gave us a feeling of how for these kids, artificial intelligence mostly related to intelligent robots. And there were other words which were cited, like information, programming, mathematics, creativity, building, not alive, and so on, which all make sense. And that gave us a kind of wisdom of crowd definition of AI from the kids. And after having this definition of AI, we went on to the history of AI. And that is something which is also very interesting to think of. When did AI start in a way? So did it start 10 years ago? So we talk a lot about AI now. It seems to be a really contemporary topic, but it certainly didn't start 10 years ago, but how old can it be? And I would like you to think about it. In your opinion, when did AI start? Was it 50 years ago, 200 years ago? Just give you a few seconds to come up with an answer to this. So I won't let you too long thinking about it. Probably there is no right answer to this. And so we have this game of cards. So there are about 30 cards, and each card relates to an event, a person, an object, which has some link with AI. And there is the date of that event, person, or object, and the kids have to sort them on a timeline. And in that game, the oldest event dates back from 2,500 years, which is an automata, a flying pigeon. So you have the picture there, which was designed in Greece at the time. And then there are a lot of other cards that are interesting to emphasize. One of them is this guy with the turban and the beard. So his name is Mohammed Al-Khwarizmi, and he is known to have given its name to the word algorithm, which is really central to what computer science is and to artificial intelligence. And his work dates back to 1,500 years ago. Then we have this lady, Ada Lovelace, who did a lot of work in the 19th century on programming. So before computers were created, she was using mechanical machines at the time. And it's interesting also to emphasize that it was a woman. So we know that there is a gender bias in computer science. And it's mostly men now that are in this domain. And it's interesting to emphasize that it's actually a woman to which we attribute the first principles of programming. And then coming to more recent events, we have, for example, the world champion in the Go game, which was defeated by a computer. So that was in 2016. And the Go game is considered to be one of the most complex games. And very recently, artificial intelligence systems managed to be better than human in this domain. So after like putting some perspective about AI and how it is actually difficult to define what it is and how it's existed for a very long time, we went on with algorithms. And so an algorithm is a word that kids don't know about, which is pretty normal. And actually most adults don't know about them either, even if they actually use them every day. So an algorithm is simply a sequence of instructions to solve a problem. And if you cook a cake, you basically follow an algorithm, which is the recipe. So you have ingredients and the recipe will tell you how you should mix the ingredients in order to obtain the cake. And by cooking, you're basically following an algorithm. So algorithms expresses the sequence of instructions you have to follow in order to solve a problem. And the problem could be, for example, to sort kids from the smallest to the tallest. So that's a game we did with them. So instead of using their size, we used numbers. So each kid has a number and they have to sort themselves according to the numbers that they have. So if you have a group of 5 to 10 kids, it's reasonably fast. You just tell them, do as you want, sort yourself out. It's a bit messy, but it's reasonably fast. Now imagine that you have 1,000 kids ordered in a line and ask them to sort themselves. So this is going to be really messy. You'll have like kids running everywhere, trying to figure out where they should go in the line. Probably take a long time and maybe even become boring at some point because it's going to take too long. And instead of like doing this randomly, you can ask them to come up with something a bit more efficient. And something which is very simple and very efficient is, well, if you have the kids in a line, each kid simply looks at the number on the kid of the kid on its right. And if the number is higher than his number, then they change place. And otherwise, they stay at the same place. And they repeat. And this way, all the kids will be able to sort themselves out in a very, say, ordered way and reasonably fast. And so these algorithms allow to solve problems, and they're allowed to then program computers, because a computer program is simply a translation of an algorithm into a language that the machine can understand. So that's the next step. So also in the activities that we organized in this summer school, we had programming of robots. Here it's a Timio robot that can be programmed with a block language called Scratch, which is very easy to use. So it's simply blocks that you move around and that follow a structure that is very similar to the algorithm that you want to program. So here is an example of an algorithm that can control a robot in order for the robot not to fall from a table. So the robot can detect edges of the table, turn when it finds an edges, and that way remain on the table. And the block-based programming language are understood fairly quickly by kids, even from age 10 or 8. And here is a small video of the last day of the summer school where they had an exhibition showing off all what they had learned during the week. And here is the robot. The kids quite excited, maybe a bit too much treating the robot.
Aussi, il faut savoir qu'est-ce qui fait le robot dans les couleurs.
And then she the filter explaining how that works. And also during this last day, we did the AI definition game again. So asking them what they think AI is. And this is what we obtained. So now I guess you all see the main change with the first word cloud. Algorithm is really at the center. And that's really interesting because it shows that the way the kids see what AI is changed. And it's not now so much about intelligence, but much more about algorithms and mathematics. And there is also a new word that appeared, which is machine learning. So which is the domain of algorithmics for allowing machines to find prediction models. So there is one word which is missing, though, from this word cloud, which is the word ethics. And we didn't have any activities on ethics in this summer school, but it's something that is definitely important to add. And I'd like to follow with this project that we started in January, which is called AI for Inclusive Education, and whose goal will be to bring some activities around ethics for kids in Belgium. So the goal of the project is to develop a pilot open access content in French and Dutch to introduce teenagers and young adults from disadvantaged backgrounds to AI, programming, data, and robotics. So we're a consortium with 4 partners, ourselves, BeMaker, who is a non-profit organization that has a tech truck. So it's a fab lab in a truck, and that they can go to schools and do activities around coding, programming, electronics with kids directly in the schools. And we have the support of the FARI Institute, which is the AI for the Common Good Institute in Brussels, and the Erasmus Hohe School. And the whole project is supported by the Digital Belgium Skills Fund. And one of the first activity of the project is to create a catalog of resources around AI. So there are a lot of different resources that exist, but they are difficult to find or not so easy to find. And so we are building this repository. It's online since this week, so you can find it at the URL there, lascientotech.shinyapps.io/AI resources. And people interested in finding resources can search according to the language, age, resource type, resource category, and also some other filters. And here is a small screenshot of the catalog. So it's very simple. You have these filters, choose what you're interested in, and then you get to the content that can be of interest for you with the links to the different resources. And it's worth emphasizing that most of the resources that exist now are in English. And one of the important things to do is to translate these resources to make them available either in French or Dutch for Belgian kids. And the emphasis will be put on resources on machine learning and resources on ethics. And in terms of programming, probably the 2 main or most interesting programming language are Scratch and Python. And then we are also working more specifically on some applications like space or smart cities, but many others like health or environment can be also useful to develop. So in the next steps of this project, we are planning to test these activities with kids, with different events or activities that we have in the different network of teachers with which we work, and also to share this expertise with any organization which is interested in AI for kids, with the goal of organizing an AI and education symposium in November. So if you're interested in this topic, please get in touch. And I'd like to finish this by providing 2 links, which I think are really worth looking at. The first one is the UNESCO did a very interesting study of all the AI curricula that exist in the world. That came out in February, so last month. And you'll see that most of the work is done in the US and in the UK. If you look at what exists in Belgium, there is very little yet. And the second one is this series of webinars organized by the Raspberry Pi Foundation, which started in September 2021 and which is finishing this month. And in particular, in January, there was a webinar on teaching artificial intelligence in K-12, so that's primary and secondary schools, which is really interesting. So to close this, I'd like to also highlight some of the challenges that we have in teaching AI to kids. So there are numerous initiatives, as I said, but a lack of structure and consensus. And also there are much more resources that discuss technical contents of AI, but few that discuss ethical issues related to AI, so that there is a need to find the right balance between ethical and technical content. There is also a need in clarifying what are the pedagogical objectives and educational reference systems. So there is a lot of work which is being done on that in the US. It's also worth mentioning that in China, the government mandated that all students will have to learn about AI, but they haven't established any standards yet. In the European Union, there is the DIGCOMP framework, so which is a digital competency framework, which in its next version, 2.2, which will come out probably next week, there will be a section on AI. And it's also worth emphasizing that many countries are missing, and in particular, countries like countries in Africa or in South America are not working on this as far as I know. And when we know that there are a lot of discriminatory issues with AI towards minorities, and that is something that is an issue. And going back to Belgium, there is the question of, once we have defined useful contents about AI, how it can be integrated into schools' curricula. And finally, if we want to teach AI in schools, we need teachers to teach AI in schools, and we need to train teachers to be able to teach AI, which is also something to think about. So with this, I'd like to open the discussion panel and give the floor back to Valerie. Thank you.
Thank you, Yanal. Thank you very much. Let's start the panel discussion, and let's start with Caroline. So Caroline, please come with us. Hello.
Hello. So yeah, can you hear me, everybody? Yeah.
Yeah.
So for this session, we'll have the opportunity to listen 6 speakers coming from Belgian non-profit organizations, whose mission is notably to work on AI education for the young generation. So first, I will let them introduce themselves, but very briefly, because it's quite a short session. So I will let 1 or 2 minutes for this. So maybe we can start with my colleague Yanael, that you you know now a bit more, but maybe you can specify a bit more on you.
Yeah, so I've got 2 hats. I'd say on the one hand, I work as a researcher in machine learning and artificial intelligence at the University of Brussels in the Department of Computer Science and Machine Learning Group. And on the other hand, I work at La Scientotech as an educational advisor, developing resources on AI for kids.
Okay, thank you. Then we have Nele van Beveren.
Yes, hello. Yeah, I'm Nele van Beveren. In my daily life, I'm combining IT consultancy with working on in-house IDs at Enquête. and I love spreading my IT and STEM enthusiasm. That's why I'm already doing this for quite a long time as a lead coach at Codere Dojo, and I wanted to spread the enthusiasm even more. So 5 years ago, I started We Go STEM together with Dwengo, which is an initiative that enables thousands of children to immerse themselves into STEM by building an art robot in the classroom with the help of their teachers and volunteers. As of 2020, I'm also one of the directors of Dwengo, which enables to have an even bigger impact on spreading STEM. And Dwengo offers a lot of cool projects. One of those projects is AI at school. It started out of the concern that students should have an understanding of artificial intelligence, and that there currently, like Janaël already explained, is really a gap in the secondary school curriculum. So we have socially relevant projects, research-based projects on AI, and all those projects start from a unique STEM context like biology, linguistics, care, and so on. So we provide open source didactical materials for the school linked to the official learning goals, free to use for everyone, available on our website, aiopschool.be, and also dwengo.org.
Okay, thank you, Nelly. Then we also have Nadine Kouzam from Code and Play. I guess she joined now?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. So yeah, I'm Nadine. I studied computer engineering and AI at the ULB in Brussels. Then I worked most of my career in data science. But 5 years ago, same as Neil, I founded Code and Play with really the goal of getting everyone on board with digital skills, with a heavy accent on like coding, AI, IoT, robotics, that are extremely important, but also like all the skills that go around it, and not just technical aspects, but understanding what that means for the children. That's briefly about me.
Okay, thank you, Nadine. Then we also have Nathalie Cuborn from We Are Coders.
Yes, hello. So I'm Nathalie, and I founded 4 years ago Coding Lab for Kids. And our main topic is video gaming. So we're a bit old school, arcade game and things like that. And the idea was to use this trigger because many kids love video games, and to use this to teach them programming. But then as we developed, we do other things. We do also robotics, and we work with microcontrollers and do some applications. And it's for kids from 8. And now we are launching the Creative Digital Youth Project. We're going with the Soma Foundation. We're going to open more than 1,000 seats, like for 1,000 kids. We're going to offer stage, boot camps, and courses. And it's for unprivileged children or children that dropped from school, and also for autistic children, because we believe that autistic children might have great abilities for programming. So we developed a special program for them.
Okay, thank you very much. And we also have Martine Tempels.
Yes, thank you. So my name is Martine Tempels. I'm, by the way, not working anymore at Telenet. I left the company in January. I work currently as a board member on 3 companies, one in telecom in Malta and 2 IT companies in Belgium. But more important, I'm here for the role I played in Codere Dojo Belgium, which we brought to Belgium 9 years ago. And Codere Dojo is a club free of charge for children from 7 to 17. And the purpose of Codere Dojo has been and is always to inspire them to the digital world. Anything what you can do, you make it, if it is an app or a robot or whatever. The only rule is being cool, and the more crazy it gets, the better it is in our perspective. And it has been a success. Last year, we were active in 150 places in Belgium, even with the COVID, which was an extreme challenging time. So why are we doing that? And I think we all share the same vision, is that this needs to scale. It's very important. And the most important aspect is to demystify it to children, to make them feel that it's feasible, it's not difficult, they can do it. They can do it from a very young age, and they learn a lot faster than adults is. But once we have the material, and I'm very happy a lot of you are working on this material, also we are working, the biggest challenge will be to scale it into schools. But maybe we can discuss a little bit later on this topic.
Yeah, it would be part of the point. Thank you, Martin. And finally, we also have Jorik Schedgen from BeMaker.
Yeah, hi, Caroline. So my name is Jorik Schedgen. After many years actually in technology companies, I founded BeMaker and now managing this nonprofit organization. The objective we have is to train young people on digital technologies and coding. We work mostly through schools, directly with students or with teachers in a sort of teach the teacher manner to try to provide skill. And that may be one of the topics we discuss a little bit in this panel. And we are actually working pretty closely with La Scientothèque on artificial intelligence in this joint project called AI for Inclusive Education.
Yeah, thank you. So, yes, we have a few points to discuss today, and yeah, we'd like to address this point so that we get some, to give some elements of reflection and better understand finally why and what should we teach young people about AI. So we all know that the current generation is of young people uses many applications and usually on their smartphone without necessarily knowing how these are designed and by whom. So my first question I wanted to address is how to show the hidden side of these applications to the young people. And for this, maybe I will give the voice to Yanaël and Martin that want to share something on this point.
Yeah, as this silence I'll start. And Caroline, you're so right. It's about not using or not playing the game, but making it. It's in how it's made, which is important that children learn, because it's the essentials of actually the digital economy, and it's the essential of everything what is in front of them. And we do it through application, because we are in a very fast environment, and children are very difficult to capture. I think they are in school lots of their time. And if you make it fun and you make them make things, you can access them and showing them what it means. And then you can actually enter what is actually the basis. Everybody should actually have a basis of computer science and data science and AI. You can learn it through plays, actually. It's not difficult. And I think that's the most important aspect. Just by making them make something, you can learn a lot of things to children.
Yeah. Is there something you want to add, Yanaël, maybe on this point?
Yeah, indeed. I think the best is to open the box and see what's inside. So that, yeah, basically understand it's all about algorithms, and then to play, experiment with them. And that's definitely the one of the best entry to understand like the hidden side of this application. Then I could mention maybe also to experiment with tools. There are a few ways that we can see how AI also influences not only in the way AI works, but also in their applications. So for example, AI is used a lot for recommendation and in many applications. For example, the videos that can be recommended to you, things for buying that you can have on different websites are powered by AI, and you can see how it impacts you by, for example, switching to private browsing, which is a way to see how AI actually influences the content that is given to you. There is a nice demo about that by the Mozilla Foundation, where they open tens of windows in private mode with a history of browsing which has different profiles. And this way you can see how the way you visit websites will influence the kind of information which is displayed to you. So that's also one way to show how AI influences the content that is displayed to someone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and another point about educating young people is obviously the age at which it's relevant to discuss a subject as abstract, and AI, we know that can be complex to explain. So for this question, I would be curious to know your views. Is there an ideal age to educate young people to AI? So I think Nele, Nathalie, and Nadine, you had something to share with us.
Yes, you don't immediately start with AI. Like Martine and Yanael, they are explaining, you start with some basic principles on, for example, programming, computational thinking. And for STEM, research tells us that we cannot start soon enough, like already from kindergarten. Is AI itself, to me, it starts a bit later. At Wengo, we provide material for secondary school. It's always important to link it to topics that both fit their interest and their age. So we provide materials from 12 years old. We start with social robots. And yeah, we go up to 18 years old for other AI projects. But yeah, you're never too old.
Yeah, so it's more from secondary, you said.
Yeah, so
that you have some materials.
Specific AI projects, yes.
Yeah.
But the basic principles can be a lot earlier, of course.
Yeah, do we have some earlier approach in the panel?
Yeah, I was going to say more than an age, it's really a moment. I think everyone should understand how the underlying technology works before being consumers. So the question is more around like, when does children or anyone start being in touch with AI? And I think like we all know the AI, it feeds us just what we need. It's tailored information, which is incredible gains of efficiency. I think Yanael touched a bit about it. I think we're all not young enough to remember the times when we were browsing several pages on Google to get information. Today, you're expecting your answer in the first 5 answers, unless you're doing really deep research. And so I think the first contacts that people have now with AI are either online research or social media. That's, in my opinion, how it starts. And even with with YouTube, you have that notion also of research and the AI that's going to feed you things that you're using. So I'd say like your first contact gets around 9-10 years old. And social media should be theoretically as from 13 years old, but it can start earlier. So to Nele's point, like we had this philosophy at Code and Play to say we'll keep the AI topic for beginning of secondary school. But we decided this year that we would already touch about it in the 3rd or 4th year of primary school. Not as deeply as we would beginning of secondary school, because then you really need to go into understanding what clustering is, like what is the impact of you clicking, posting, or sharing towards what you're going to see next, and understand that you're going to see what you're feeding an algorithm with. And so also like the French-speaking curriculum in Belgium will soon integrate new competencies and skills. And they're bringing online research to the 3rd and 4th year of primary school, so 9-10 years old. It doesn't go as far as telling the teachers they need to explain the AI behind it, But in my opinion, it's extremely important to not only understand how to research, but also like once you start researching, what information you're giving and how the algorithm works to influence your next researches.
Yeah.
So I'd say I first start 9, 10 years old and then beginning of secondary school.
Okay.
Caroline?
Yeah.
I just wanted to add a little bit on an initial comment here on the ideal age, which is you never start too early on this. And indeed, AI, if you think of it in terms of specific AI technologies, deep learning, image recognition, neuronal networks, these sort of things, there may be things that become complex, but AI is a full continuum that is actually computer science behind it. And you need to initiate something very early around these computer technologies, programming, coding. And if you look at that, you can really start very early. And we were really surprised about that. Kids are ready very early to get that. And you have the tools to do this. You have the tools to make it fun, to get their interest. And you have things like computing unplugged, where you don't need to be behind the screen to start explaining a few things. You have technologies such as Scratch, which are visual drag and drop to build your program. You can start very quickly, and then you evolve with some real programming language. But it is a full continuum, and you can really start early, and you should start early if you want to get to deeper levels when they get older.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I mean, actually in La Scientothèque, it's also the way we are doing that, because we think that some tools can be adapted and some unplugged computer activities can be addressed to very, very young. And we had the experience to have this kind of activities in maternelle. So, and it was really successful actually. And then it's evolving with age, and each year you add something more. So yeah, it's quite interesting. I think here we have a panel of a very large views on this question. But as I mentioned, AI can seem very complex to approach. So we can also ask ourselves, what we can ask is how to raise awareness also about the potential benefits and dangers of such AI, and especially concerning the data, for example. So it's not so far from raising the question of ethical aspects that Yanaël mentioned before. And I think it's, this kind of topic cannot be just technical, but has also to be approached in this ethical way. So I don't know if you have some thought to share with us about this. I think Nelly from you wanted to say something about that.
Yes, we love to show things. Huh? So every project really starts from a socially relevant situation. So we show the benefits of AI, so the children can really feel the benefits too. For example, one of the projects is about climate change. Another one is about chatbots and sentiment analysis. So the children can see and feel, for example, if your input data is crap, the output probably is too, for example. So they can really experience themselves what it means. Yeah. And concerning the ethics, it's really important to have a discussion and to also see that it's part of such a project. It's just not something to think about at the end of a project, but it's throughout the project you should think about it. Concerning the data, for example, that children are really trying in the project. We also have a specific game. It's concerning artificial intelligence in the care sector, and it's a card-based game with statements. So the children can talk about, what do you think about this and this statement in the care sector? Do you really need to see a human doctor, for example? So questions like that, so they can start discussion and sharing ideas on these topics also.
Yeah.
It's also on this ethical topic. I think I really like the two words I heard before, which is demystifying and opening the box. Because when I think of this ethical discussion around AI, it always reminds me of these ethic courses that we had in primary and secondary school. And in these courses, you're put in front of situations. Teacher that tells you this is bad. It's always a situation that we put in front of you, and then there's facilitation of a discussion between the students, which sort of figure out how they feel about these things. And I think with AI and computer science, it's just a tool in the end. So you can make good things, you can make great things, you can make really bad things. But as soon as you open up the box and you demystify things, you can let the children and the young people figure it out by themselves. And I think we need to trust a little bit how they will make their own rules by understanding exactly what's happening inside of that box.
Yeah. Somebody else wanted to add something?
Yeah, maybe Caroline. Especially on the ethical aspect, and you're right, Jorik, you can learn what a rule means and how a decision is made, and what the moral aspect is, of course, society related. And what worries me the most relating to the ethical aspect and education of children is that our society is not informed. Because children are not an island, they have parents and they have schools, and most of the demystification needs to be done in that environment, because there is a lot of FUD going on AI in the moment in society, and that cannot only be addressed through the children. I think we need, on the ethical aspect, most important, a larger initiative in education, because everybody needs to be educated, not only the children.
Yeah, I fully agree on that. I think attacking the children is the long-term goal of, if we have all the children at the beginning, then in a few years it will be solved. But if you want to think about shorter term, because that's where we're at, and the challenges are today, we need to be able to browse more broadly. And having people who understand technology, and this is for AI, but this is worth for all, like ICT in general, we let that knowledge to too few people. And that was my feeling 5 years ago when I started Code and Play. Like, it's not normal that I'm that privileged, because at some point I decided to study computer engineering and AI just because I like the topic. And by doing that, we're just letting a few people lead what should be done. Plus, ICT and AI is like super horizontal, as Jorik said. So you cannot be an expert in everything. If you've studied AI, you have your AI expertise. And then I worked a lot in telco, so I built telco expertise. But if you're asking me about healthcare, about other things, I won't be able to answer everything. And so we need policymakers, we need users, and not just the developers to understand. And again, even in the development, you have the technical part, but you have all other things that happen in that development funnel where you need people who understand how it works.
Yeah, thank you. So I think it's a very big question. We could stay 1 hour, 2 hours discussing on that. I hope it will the presentation and everything. Now that we know all the organizations we are part, I hope it will open more discussion outside of this session. Maybe I still have 1 or 2 minutes to approach the very last question, which is important too. and it's how does gender's bias impacts AI, and why therefore we need more women in AI. So for this question, I will let maybe Yanel, you wanted to say something on that, and also Nathalie, if I'm right, or others.
Yes, I would like to, please. I think the first thing that is important is there are not enough women in IT. I've seen in every activity that I organize, there are about 1/3, which is far not enough. And girls have really super great abilities. They don't go, I mean, because we do gaming, they like to play games, so maybe they're attracted by what we are doing. But spontaneously, from my experience, it's like IT is a guy's things. Right? And even for boys from 9 years old, if I say, oh, there are no girls in this group, and they look at each other and say, why girls, from 9 years old? So it has to be very, very early to involve girls. And so I was thinking, because we know yesterday there was a panel, I didn't follow it, but I think that everybody more or less guesses the problems of the bias in specifically in AI, because if you make the decisions as a man, you will probably not integrate some other parameters that belongs more to women. So basically, and generally, getting girls in IT, I think, and in AI is very important for, yeah. And I created a club, especially for girls, where all the activities are free and they meet together to meet each other, to exchange ideas together. And it's very interesting because organically, I discovered that they work in a much more collaborative ways. So if I have a group with only guys, the super guys, they're sweet and cute, but they will be more in a competition spirit. And when the girls are together in the group, they really work one with another and they exchange ideas and they work together on a project. So yeah, we have to find ways to get more girls in the field, definitely.
Yeah, to follow on that, I really agree. So our panel is actually not representative of reality. So I was seeing some statistics about that. There was a UNESCO report recently about the gender bias in AI, and apparently proportion of women is only 10%. So that's really something to be conscious about, and I try to bring more women into this domain. And that's really important because, yeah, my feeling is that either in terms of, both in terms of applications, so we see how gender bias can impact even the applications, some of the applications. It can be, some examples are face recognition, for example, they are known to be less accurate with women than for men. In translation, also, it's interesting to see that you'll find some annoying gender bias. I was testing that just before the panel, but going to Google Translate, if you type in English, I'm a beautiful pianist, this will be translated in French as je suis une belle pianiste, so female. If you ask, I'm a clever pianist, translation will be je suis un pianiste intelligent, so that will be male. And it's subtle, so it's not by design that we get this. It's really statistics that we got from the data that was used to train those translation systems. So it's not that someone decided it would be this way. So it's not so easy to see how we can fix these kind of problems, but it's definitely something that we need to be aware about, and for which, yeah, we need to find solutions.
Yeah.
And also to help, sorry, go ahead.
No, go.
Okay, I thought I was interrupting someone. No, I just wanted to make the link with the previous question, which is when can we start? And I think the sooner you start, the less gender bias you will get, especially if you try to integrate this at school. If you do that end of secondary school, you already have some sort of bias because teachers that would be interested in getting these sort of courses or activities would probably be in mathematics, science, where you already have a gender bias. If you do that in primary school, there's no gender bias at all, obviously. And what we see when we do the activities is there's just equal interest from any gender. It really doesn't matter. So starting early is also a way to address this.
Yeah, that's the reason that we also do it at school, the projects, and that we also start from different contexts, just to avoid the already splitted attention in a secondary school. We also put projects for linguistics, for example, or in care sectors to have the different sectors, because indeed, if you're then focusing on on some secondary school classes, you could already have that bias over there. Yeah, right.
And there is a really nice study that shows that the gender bias comes at between 6 and 7 years old for children, which is extremely early. And so I think it's really important, as you said, Yorick, to start working with them at that age. And with Code and Play, that was the main reason why we started in primary school. But then we've also been made aware that it's one step, because great, we have 48% of women, and we're trying to get to 50-51. But as soon as, at that age, it's still seen as play and a game. And so you also need to be extremely present at the beginning of secondary school, where they start shifting from this is a game towards this is a job. And so even if you need to start early, but even if you do and you fix it till they're 12, that transition towards starting to think about a job, you also need to make a lot of work into getting the girls to understand it's not just a game. If you can also consider that as a career.
If I may, I missed the question about the age. I want to mention that Canada has a very interesting program. So they have the ambition to start the IE education from the kindergarten. And computer programming and AI algorithm is a way of thinking. So like playing just like a game like in French is qui est, who's who. You know, it follows also the same kind of logic when you have an animal, when a computer finds out with a picture what animal it is. Does it have wings? Does it have a tail? Does it have teeth? Does it have, so these things. And the simple game, who is it, follows this kind of logic. So there are many games totally unplugged that already belong to our popular culture that can be used to teach AI from very small age. Yeah, unplug activities, just to mention. Yeah. So the Canadian program is really interesting. If anybody, well, can send you the link, but they're developing something very for all the training from all school long, from kindergarten. Very nice.
Thank you. So I think that we are at almost two. Maybe I will give back the floor to Valérie for, I don't know if there's any questions.
Sorry, may I add please one more thing about the gender bias? I think because we're talking a lot about role models for girls, I think role models is really something that can attract girls. But I realized that most of the time we pick up role models that are from old times or that are our generation. And I'm thinking that a really nice way to attract more girls is to bring more role models their age or young girls, young women from maybe that realize that create an application, that created a game, and ask them, invite them to show what they have done with technology and with AI to the younger ones, as a suggestion.
So great. This is a nice discussion, very interesting. I would like to thank you, all of you. Thank you for your availability for this presentation, for this panel. I hope everybody enjoy all the information shared. And to remind us that the video will be available on YouTube next week on the channel of AI for Belgium. And so this is the end of our track education, AI training and education and future of job and skills. And so I think this is the perfect discussion to close this track. And I would say just the beginning, we need to follow the several actions. So let's start, I would say, let's continue. So thank you, everybody. I will close the chat, the session, and have a nice day, have a nice weekend. Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.